Welcome to Mormon Book Reviews, where an evangelical encounters the restoration. I'm your host, Steven Pynakker, and I'm very honored to have my good friend on, Jim Bennett, who's been on this show for years now, a regular, and I've had the opportunity to meet with each other and spend time together. And Jim, I consider to be a close, precious friend. Jim Bennett, welcome back to the program.
Stephen, I consider you to be a close, precious friend likewise, and I'm very grateful to be here with you.
So I reached out. I basically just kind of give people some background here on why we're having this conversation today is because in October of last year, there was this fairly well-known, in some spaces, ex-Mormon podcaster who has a weekly program or had a weekly program, decided to make a truly offensive, vile video attacking myself. And, honestly, I don't care if he attacked me. I'm a public person. But went after LGBTQ people, um, or made fun of them using, mockery. Um, Went after my mom, attacked my mom. You don't do that, homie. And then while we were going through a hurricane and he thought it was so funny that we were going through a hurricane, he made a comedy skit about it. And it was very devastating. So I essentially the next day I went and did a live stream and basically said, listen, I'm a person who believes in forgiveness and restitution and all that in second, third, fourth, fifth chances. Here are some certain things that I think you should do if you want to kind of do right by my mom and by my mom mostly and myself and the community. And then Chris Hanna on Porch Time also talked about how basically if he wants to get back in this game, he really needs to do right by Steve, which I agree with that. And then shortly after my live stream, this was on October 18th, my good friends Bill Reel and Radio Free Mormon did a live stream condemning this vitriol that was spewed from this channel and basically made it very clear because you have to understand Jacob Hansen was on the prowl. He was calling out Mormon podcasters, ex-Mormon podcasters, and saying, "What are y'all going to do about this?" And I knew that my friends would have my back. And so within 24 hours, RFM and Bill Reel are posting this live stream defending me and showing how this individual just went too far. It was beyond the pale, and that basically the ex-Mormon and the progressive Mormon communities condemned this vile video, vile attack on my mother. And so last night, unbeknownst to Jim and Ian of the Inside Out podcast, they were a guest on this program and did not know that these events had transpired. I at the time did not know this, so I was a little upset, like, oh my gosh, like, why are they going on this program after all this stuff? I thought we were past this whole thing. And I couldn't believe that this individual thought that they could get back into this without going through the steps of, doing right by my mom. Um, I was shocked. I mean, it's like basically you're spitting in my mom's face all over again. And so I was really hurt by it. And then I texted Jim and Ian, and they got back to me as soon as the episode was done. I was talking to Jim on the phone. Ian was in communication with me. And so, Jim, I just want to kind of have you kind of explain what happened so people have a better understanding. I wanted to kind of give a little background here, but I just wanted you to give your perspective on this too.
Well, sure. I was devastated when I received that text from you. It came about 5 minutes. If you watch the live stream, you'll see me get a little distracted because I looked at my phone and I got this text that you were upset about us being on the program. My background with Divas was not, I had been on not Mormon book reviews, your Mormon book reviews, Mormon News Roundup before. It had been several years ago, this individual was not the only person involved, and received an invitation sort of out of the blue to come back on, and I jumped at the chance. I didn't know anything about the history there. I'd had a good experience the first time I had gone on, and frankly, I had a good experience last night when I was on. I thought the discussion was really productive. I thought that am I not supposed to be saying his name?
No, you can say, that's fine. You can say whatever you want, you're comfortable saying. Yeah.
Oh, sure, sure. Well, I mean, I'm not. This isn't his real name, but his sort of handle as he goes about broadcasting is Divas, uh, and I'm not sure where that comes from, but I thought he I mean, I thought the program was actually really, really wonderful, and I thought he was very talented, and I thought this is a great experience, and I'd be happy to do it again. And then I got your text, and I immediately texted Divas as well. Well, right after it was over, I brought this to his attention. He was very just sort of quickly dismissive of it. He says, I've got no problem with Steven from my end. It's all on his end, and really didn't seem to want to talk about it, and hasn't talked about it since. I have talked to sort of intermediaries who insist that maybe Divas deserves a little more. I mean, so according to my understanding, and Stephen, you've sort of explained this, that he, after that video and after the backlash, I mean, I had no idea this video existed. You sent us a copy so we could see it, and I was just floored by the idea that anybody could think that that was appropriate, that anybody would look at that and say, "Oh, geez, this will be funny," or this. I mean, it was just vicious from beginning to end. It wasn't funny at all, and so I texted Divas, and the response that I've gotten essentially has come through intermediaries who talk about the fact that he, after the video, after the backlash, after the condemnation, Divas sort of went radio silent, and now is sort of kind of trying to resurface, trying to just move on and pretend that this didn't happen, or whatever it is.
I was hoping he was getting help. I was hoping he was getting help during this
And
time.
maybe he was. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know this individual on a personal level. Certainly not nearly as well as I know you, and as I've had interactions with you. But I have never had any sort of negative interaction with him personally.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll make an anti Jim Bennett video or a video about his mom. uh, or about my mom. I'm actually at my mother's house right now. My mother broke her arm on Saturday. And so we're kind of rallying around her and trying to take care of her. She's doing very, very well. So, when I found out that this had affected your mother, it right now it just sort of hit home. You don't go after somebody's mother. That's not appropriate. So at the same time, and I said this to you before we started, I don't want to get in the middle of something. And the response that you said was, well, Divas put you in the middle of it.
Yeah,
That
he
he was
did.
trying to sort of use my cachet, whatever that may be, to sort of reintroduce himself to the world. And I'm a little frustrated that we didn't know this background going in. But at the same time, I have never had a personal cause to take issue with him.
Yeah.
But
And
I very much want the world to know that I want to stand with you,
thank you, Jim.
particularly about how atrocious that video was.
Yeah. Thank you, Jim. I really appreciate it. And I don't I don't want to pile on either because I've had a lot of people that reached out to me that have known him basically his entire life and told me some things. And my heart, in many ways, feels bad for him, and my heart goes out to him. And yes, experiencing PTSD and other things in your life, which I've experienced too. So I'm very much somebody who's simpatico with that whole thing. But still, you have to take responsibility for things that you say and do when you try to hurt other people. And I've spoken to other people who've reached out to me that he's hurt throughout the years. And so there's a pattern there that I find concerning. And that's why I think it's really important that this individual, Burke, I think you need to get help. Um, I am a person who believes in Christianity and believes in forgiveness, and I'm somebody who believes in restoration and restitution. And so I want to just tell you that, you know, it's weird how you gave an apology on your your community page on your YouTube channel, which nobody looks at. But just a little short time before that, you were texting me that message that I sent you the screenshots to, Jim, where you just kind of really thought it was so funny and clever, and you really nailed me. And it was kind of sick. It seemed like there's a sickness there going on that I just, feel bad for you, dude, and just so you know, I've probably known this individual longer than just about anybody in this space. Okay. I have a long history with him. I was one of his early on guests on his program. And I was like, oh, sponsored by Signature Books. Well, maybe I'll come on this program. There's a lot, of course, you got to do right by Signature Books again, too, Burke. Sorry, but you do. I mean, what you did I mean, I talked to Barbara on the phone and I mean, I think we can't move on yet, Burke, because you've done so much damage in people's wake and have attempted to, and you've hurt people. And so before you can move on this, man, you got to do right by the people that you hurt. And I've gone on programs. I've already talked about who you need to do right with, who you need to apologize to. You don't even have to apologize to me. All I ask is you apologize to my mom. And I mean, I want a face-to-face Zoom call or phone call with my mom where you publicly apologize and personally apologize to her. Okay. Um, Anybody who thinks that I need to move on from this, I did move on. Unfortunately, I started seeing his shorts showing up on the Ex-Mormon Reddit. I'm like, it's a little triggering. And I thought the ex-Mormon community condemned these actions. And the next thing I knew, I see my homies, Ian and Jim, come on the program. I'm like, what the heck's going on here? And so I was like, Jim, what are you doing, dude? Well, he didn't know. Not everybody knows this story. But I also want to make it very clear there were those in the apologetics camp who were going to make this into an ex-Mormon thing where they're going to show that this is what all ex-Mormons do. And I was
Yeah.
even invited to go on a major program, and you would all know who these people are. And I just stipulated, I said, listen, I don't want to make this about the ex-Mormon community. So I just want to make it about this one particular individual who did this terrible thing to my mother. Okay. And that's all I want to talk about. I don't, and so then, of course, they didn't want to have me on the program because I wasn't going to go and bash and hate on the ex-Mormons or the progressives, which they like to do. I won't do that because they're all my friends. So I just wanted to give people context here. Jim, was there anything that you wanted to add to this? Say anything else?
Uh, no, I mean, I really do. I do feel like I'm walking into the middle of something that I don't fully understand. The intermediaries that have been reaching out have said there's two sides to every story. I texted back to him and said, "Look, what am I missing? You know,
Yeah.
what is your side of the story?" And he hasn't responded to that. The sense I get as an amateur armchair psychologist is that he just doesn't know to how to do this or how to do this and save face or whatever it is. I mean, whenever I mean, I've had many times in my life where I have done stupid things, and and trying it's difficult to sort of come to terms with that personally, and then to have the strength or have the presence of mind to know how to make it right with the people I've wronged. So I can understand that. It's a very sort of human story. I
Yeah.
want to give grace to, again, I don't want this, I don't want to pile on Divas,
No.
and I want to make it clear that I really did enjoy the podcast last night, and that if he can make things right with you and make things right with his community, I would like to see more of podcasts like that, because I think he's a valuable voice in the conversation when he's, doing what he does best. And he seems to have a great deal of talent and a great deal of passion for what he's doing. But you know, I fully understand and support your position that these are the kinds of things that you really do need to. I mean, it's sort of the basic Christianity principle, isn't it? If there's something wrong between you and your brother, go quietly
Yeah.
and make things right
Yep.
before you go out and do all of that. And uh, I'm hopeful that he can and that he will. He seems bright. He seems capable. And I just think this is an emotionally difficult moment, and I think he knows he screwed up. And I would like to see him make things right, because I
And
would
and
like
just
to
to be
see him
clear, Ian is on just maybe speak to this. Ian has made it very clear to your co-host that he condemns what was said. I know that Ian made attempts to reach out to this individual, to Burke, and has been, I guess, apparently ghosted by him. So I think that it's really important that, there are plenty of intermediaries, but sometimes,
Sure.
there's also direct linkage as well that
Well,
people can make. And I didn't mean to pull. Look, there was no intention on my part to bring anybody into this conversation. I was through. I was like moving on. But then when he puts you guys in that very untenable position to go on his program, not knowing the full details, and then people would think that these people are that anybody that would come on his program would be seemingly endorsing the hate speech that was directed towards myself and the vile, disgusting thing that he's putting my mom on the video, that people would look at that as an endorsement. So I said, yeah, you were put in that position. I didn't put you in that position. That was Burke's doing. And I really didn't even want to tape this. And I even told you this morning, so I'm not sure what I want to do here. But Jim, I want to thank you. And I offered many times, if you don't want to do this, you don't have to. And you're like, no, I want
well,
to come by and
I
support you.
I do very much want people to recognize that, and I said this to you last night. Ian and I are kind of babes in the woods when it comes to, I mean, I certainly don't consider myself part of the ex-Mormon community, and I'm still very much a believing member. I'm a little, uh, I'm not bent out of shape, but he put a kind of a clickbait headline
Yes.
and where he says, Mormon podcasters excommunicated, and then there's a picture of Ian and me.
Yeah.
But we even talked about it in there, and it was like, okay, yeah, I get it, because where we were talking about the Hammockers
Hmm.
who had been excommunicated. That was the bulk of the program. And I have not been excommunicated. I have no plans to be excommunicated. I am still very much an active believing member of the church. Ian has great affection for the church. He is no
Hmm.
longer in the church, but uh, neither one of us are spend any time on ex-Mormon Reddit or any time in a lot of these spaces where this conversation was taking place. And so we kind of felt blindsided by this whole thing because this is not really a world where we see ourselves participating. I guess apparently we're quoted every once in a while or we're brought in into those discussions in absentia, but this is not something where we made a deliberate decision to say, okay, well, we stand against Steven Pynakker and we stand with this video that was so cruel to Steven and to his mother, because we don't. We absolutely stand against that. Ian absolutely stands against that. He's made that very, very clear. And I just, if you going on the record and talking about this, I wanted to make sure that that was clear as part of the record.
Yeah.
I, but I don't know that I have any role to play in terms of resolving the conflict between you and this individual. Uh,
Right.
but I very much wanted on the record that we did not go on that program to betray you. Had we known in advance, we would certainly have done acted differently. I think I would have tried to see if there was some way to resolve it before. I would have made it a condition to say, okay, we'll be happy to go on your program as soon as you make things right with Stephen. So
I think, yeah, and that's the thing, that it's out there. I just wanted to share the screen real quick with everybody because I want to make it very clear that the ex-Mormon community has my back. Um, and one of the spaces that has my back is Mormonism After Dark on October 18th, 2024. Shortly after I did my live stream, they did their live stream, and Bill Reel and RFM did defend me and called out Burke and everything. And so I want to make it real clear that I do not consider the community, that community, to be enemies with me. I do think that it's really important that this is the Switzerland of Mormonism, the only neutral Mormon podcast out there. And I'm also a very forgiving person, whether it's people like Aaron Shalofaloff or Robert Boylan or Burke, who've in many ways done wrong by me. I've always had the olive branch extended that if they want to talk to me, they can. And Robert Boylan, of course, did some vile, vile homophobic attacks against me as well. And he's a Mormon apologists. So I want to make it very clear that this is not just one side. I've been getting it from a lot of different sides, and also from the Christian apologist camp too. So,
Yeah, I you reached out to me at one point to show me I guess it was the Mormonism Research Ministry
mhm.
broadside on you, and I thought that was contemptible. I just thought I think it's contemptible. All of the people you've mentioned, by the way, are people that I have had no interaction with whatsoever. So I'm just nervous now if anybody reaches out and says, "Hey, Jim, come talk to me," and it's like, well, what have you done in the past that you're trying to associate me with? But Stephen, I think you perform a magnificent service. I think you may be the only person in the world that considers RFM and Jacob Hansen to be good friends.
Yes.
And that speaks to your character. That speaks to your inherent decency that you are able to build those kinds of bridges. And I think those bridges are so necessary for no matter where you situate with regard to your faith. Having a Switzerland of Mormonism is a very, very good thing. And I want you to be able to live long and prosper in that role.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Been
Just to
very
put
welcome with you.
yes, absolutely. Chino Blanco, who's one of the founders of the Ex-Mormon Reddit, there were times when he would go after me a little bit. And I would say, when people attack me online, especially early on, I'd go and say, rather than get us into a keyboard war, let's go on Zoom face to face right now and talk. And they never ever took it except for Chino Blanco, the founder of one of the founders of Ex-Mormon Reddit. And you know what? We still clash now and then, but guess what? He came on last year to give an oral history of the Ex-Mormon Reddit right before Sunstone to preview his thing. And he's a cool dude. And that goes to show that even people I've had conflicts with in the past, there's a chance that I can I can make good. I can forgive. I'm one of those things. And also just to put it on this way too, Jim, I actually had a conversation with Jacob Hansen once where we were talking about a particular podcast that we had gone on where we found out that one of the hosts kind of had a sketchy background afterwards, right? And I was just like, you know what, though? That's on them. That's not on us, right? Like if somebody invites you on their program and they don't tell you their background, that's on them. And I think so. I wouldn't feel guilty even about going on a program. You didn't know. If you knew, that'd be different. That'd be a different conversation, but you didn't know. And that's going to happen too. So this is a way for us to enlighten people, let people know about the landscape and the minefield that this is and we'll go, and that's really, I think it's really important that we just, come on, folks, let's not take ourselves so seriously. Sometimes, I think the stakes, it's like, why can't we just be nice to people? Why can't we just get along? I don't get this. Well, I don't get why this has to be in this world. It's just insane to me. I think we all should be looking out for each other. And I think, one of the fundamental rules that I've put out there to a lot of people, and they all know it, is like, I've had agreements with many people on all sides of the aisle that keep family out of it. Keep family out of it. Okay. Once you cross that line, you can attack me all you want, but once you cross that line, that needs to be called out. And the fact that this person hasn't done right by my mom means they haven't done right by me, which means they haven't done right by this community. Jim, I want to thank you so much for coming on today. Was there any final words?
No, keep family out of it. Just rings so true to me. When my blood boils, not when people go after me, but because of who my father is. Very often, people sort of take out their political vendettas against my late father, who's been dead now for over 8 years,
Wow.
almost 9 years. My
Wow.
goodness, that long ago. It just feels like yesterday. But if you want to see my blood boil, don't just come after me, come after my family. I mean, there
Right.
was a Twitter thread recently where somebody said Jim Bennett's just so bitter because of his kids are all blah 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 and I'm like, don't you dare mention my children. I am so proud of my children. I can hardly stand it. And to a person, they are outstanding, wonderful, decent people. And when people go after them, when people go after my father, when people go after me, it's very different when they go after me than when they go after my family. Family is off limits.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's just not appropriate. I mean, I'm a big boy, you're a big boy, uh, but yeah, and also to your point, I very much had a difficult relationship with Bill Reel for a bit. We did 14 hours of podcasts together on his podcast. that I thought were very productive. And then I was not happy with how he represented them afterwards. And then RFM invited me to come on. And I said, I'm not going to come on until I make peace with Bill Reel. And to Bill Reel's credit, we had a really productive phone call. We talked out all of the problems that we had. I think we resolved all the problems that we had. And now I am happy to go and talk to Bill publicly or privately. I consider him a good friend. And so, my dad always used to say, it's very hard to hate someone once you get to know them. And I think the idea that anybody could hate Steven Pynakker for anything just doesn't make a lick of sense to me. But I hope that this individual can do right by you, and I wish him well, and I wish him a bright and productive future.
Yeah.
But I do think that he needs to mend those fences if he
Yeah.
wants to move forward.
Yeah, yeah, it still hurts. And whether this happened 5 minutes ago or 5 months ago, it's still a horrible thing that happened. But I also want to make it very clear that I've had conflicts with people in the past as well. We've been able to bury the hatchet. Um, I am not a perfect person. I make mistakes all the time myself. I can kind of be sometimes have sharp elbows at times. But I try to be, and be self-reflective and be one of those people that, like, yeah, I was in the wrong on that, or I need to do right by these people. I'm all about that as well. But I'm not claiming to be perfect here. Sometimes I say things that maybe, if taken out of context, could make me sound like I tell people, so you could take a lot of my quotes and make me sound like in any number of things. And so for people to use that manipulation tactic sometimes can cause division as well. But I think it's really important that people understand that, you can get a hold of me. People know how to reach out to me. And I just want to thank basically everybody in this community, in this larger space, in both the faithful Mormon arena, within the ex-Mormon arena, within the scholarly arena, within the podcast arena. I just want to thank everybody for the encouraging words and love that Mom and I have received, especially shortly after this all happened. My mom broke her hip. And just this last year and a half has been a very difficult time for Mom and I. And so I just want to thank everybody for your kindness shown to us. We really do feel loved in this community. And my mom is so grateful that this really, in many ways, Mormonism did save my life. And so for that reason alone, I'm going to always have a soft spot in my heart for this community. And I love you all very, very much. Jim, thanks so much for coming on today.
Thank you, Stephen.
All right, folks. All right, we'll just leave your comments if you want. If anything, let's just keep Burke in our prayers, that hopefully he can get some help so that then he can start moving on in his life and maybe continue to produce content in a way that's positive and constructive and actually is building something. And we'll see what we can do to even maybe I can even have him come on my program sometime to promote his podcast, which I have done for many, many people. All right, folks, I hope everybody's having a great day and we will talk with you soon. Uh, be well. Oh, and the most important thing is this: all the voices of the restoration will be heard here on Mormon Book Reviews.